All right. Thank you so much for being here in person and online. And to those who RSVP'd and couldn't attend or couldn't make it work, we are professionally recording this, which is why I'm mic'd up. I'm not normally like that if you see me in the wild. This is the SIMBA School of Business Extra Credit session. It is our 5th session of 5. And we are so excited to be hosting an event for the first time in Grant County. And we're actually in the glorious town of Ephrata. We decided to go to a tiny town just north, I believe, on the map of Moses Lake. And we are thrilled to be partnering with the North Central Washington Libraries NCW logo. And those of you who have attended some of these School of Business trainings already know we've partnered with WSMA. For the folks that are on Zoom, thank you so much for being there. If you can, put your questions in the chat. Alexis is in the room here from SIMBA, and she will read them out so they can be on the recording. So throw your question in the chat. Ask your questions at any time. Happy to stop. The beauty of having our friends and SIMBA members of Vexing Media here with us is because we get to hang out with Tom, but also they make all of our videos fantastic. So where are we going to go today? If you've been to the other 4 trainings, then you may have seen these things. We're going to hit the highlights of each of those and go from here. So I'm going to introduce you to SIMBA and WSMA, who are paying for this training. We're going to talk about business licensing, which if you've ever talked to me at all, you know is my favorite topic ever for small businesses. We'll talk about taxes and bookkeeping, which is probably our most common request at SIMBA for business support. I'm going to give you some highlights about that. Alexis is going to take over and talk about social media for your business, not just social media for your personal time, and definitely keeping those separate. And then we'll talk about business goals in a formal way, not just I want to start my business or I want to make more money, but how do we get there? And then a little review, provide you some resources on how you can get more help from SIMBA and how you can connect with us in the future. So lesson 1, SIMBA and WSMA. If you came to any of the other School of Businesses, you have seen these slides. And next time we run this, you can hop in. So SIMBA is a mouthful. The Spokane Independent Metro Business Alliance, which is in part why I say SIMBA, and I love a cat meme. So we have a lot of lion-themed things in our network, including our newsletter that's called Roar, and we are about to record our first podcast for business resources, and I believe we're going to call it Lion's Lair. We haven't officially settled on that yet. But the other reason we talk about SIMBA is because we don't just work in Spokane. We started in Spokane, but we actually are contracted through the state of Washington and various other grants and contracts to work in 13 Eastern Washington counties, including Grant, which is why we're super excited to be here. We're a 501c3, so we're not a 6, we're not a member org, although we have incredible members, some of you I saw on the Zoom. But we are focused on education, advocacy, and outreach, and to us that's very important. We wanted to focus when we were forming on providing the things that business owners need. We talk about SIMBA being the group that can help you with the business of running your business. I can't make a custom candle, I can't take beautiful photographs, I can't even take mediocre photographs. I definitely can't run a restaurant, although I've worked in them, but I can tell you how to get the compliance pieces you need, and our incredible staff and contractors and consultants we work with can help you get all the things you need to do your business well. We provide one-on-one support at no cost. That's in person or remotely. Again, in those 13 counties, we run a number of training sessions. We run different programs like the School of Business. We'll also run one-off trainings. We're formally partnered with Startup Spokane and the Spokane Libraries to provide group trainings there. And we have a YouTube. It is YouTube Spokane Independent, where we have, I think, 15 different free video libraries or videos on demand to help with business trainings. A ton of resources on our websites, spaces to find us. WSMA, who funded us for the School of Business, is the Washington State Micro Enterprise Association. If you're Googling WSMA, make sure you put business in there because it's also the Washington State Medical Association, which provides no resources to small business owners. They're a nonprofit that supports entrepreneur support organizations like SIMBA. They provide us additional funding to get into the counties we don't normally get to work in, to provide us mileage and training and resources, and if you're in person, food. from a local spot called the Bookery that I think is darling because they have sandwiches named for authors. And I have definitely been here before doing outreach and have enjoyed the Shakespeare chicken sandwich. They provide funding to service organizations like SIMBA throughout the state to provide different programs. If you've come to some of our prior programs, the gig worker program, Get Your Gig Right last year was one of them, also recorded by Vexing. That's on our YouTube. So we love to work with WSMA. What is a micro business? Probably most of you who are on this Zoom or who work with SIMBA is technically a micro business. The definition varies, but this is WSMA's definition. It's one that employs 5 or fewer people, and I know a lot of you have no employees. You are the owner, you are the employee, you are the janitor, you are the bookkeeper, you are everything. This includes the business owner. You generally don't have a lot of startup costs or a lot of funding needs, less than $50K to start up. You might not have access to traditional business credit. You're not getting a loan. You didn't get a small amount of money from a wealthy family member to get started. You are just starting with your hard work and your effort and your savings from your day job usually. In Washington State, micro businesses and micro enterprises employ more than 600,000 people. That stat is from 2023. They haven't updated it yet through Washington law and policy, but everything I'm reading says that that number is much higher. Micro enterprises and micro businesses make up over 85% of the businesses in our state, and in Grant County, it's 97% of the businesses. There are a couple of very large employers here, and then everyone else is tiny. I like that stat. So let's talk about business licensing. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody thinks they need it. I promise you, if you're doing business in the state of Washington, even in the confines of your home, you have to have a business license. Do you need one? Yes. The answer is yes. We definitely have a lot of folks who say, I asked my buddy or my friend or my brother-in-law or my uncle. I asked Google. And if you're using Google these days, the first little summary that comes up is an AI chatbot. And the information is not always accurate. And whether you need a business license is very state specific and often county or city specific. So Google will find information about business licensing, but it might be pulling from Idaho, where you don't necessarily need a business license, at least not at the state level, maybe at the city level, or it's pulling from Oregon or California, and not necessarily the data you need. In Washington, the group that's going to tell you whether you need a business license is the Department of Revenue, who does both business licensing and state business taxes. Washington does not have an income tax, but businesses are taxed in Washington. And we'll talk about whether or not you have to pay those taxes. You do have to file them in a bit. If you don't believe me, you can contact the Department of Revenue, which has online access. They actually respond to their emails. They answer their phones. There's local offices in most counties. And then the main office is in Olympia. And you can also use the business licensing wizard. And all of these slides, just like at every one of our trainings, has live links. And when we're done with the training, everyone who RSVP'd, whether you came here or not, we will send them to you. So you don't need to write things down. We don't have them spelled out. You can click on that link and go to where you need. So the long answer is still yes. So why might you need a business license? You're doing business using other than your full legal name. So if I'm running a business and my business name is not Robin Lynn Catherine Haynes, I have to have a business license. And that would be a wild business. You're doing business where you have to collect retail sales tax. You're selling candles, you're selling art, you're selling any kind of prepared foods. You are doing painting, and not painting like art painting, but also if you're selling art that counts, but you're painting houses. You have to collect retail sales tax. Generally, if you're providing a physical good other than produce at a farmer's market that's coming from your farm and not changed in any way and going to a customer, you're collecting sales tax. Most services don't require sales tax, but some of them do, like the example of painting, construction, other kinds of things. So if you're supposed to be collecting sales tax, whether you are or not, you also have to have a business license. These are ors, they're not ands. So the other or is you make more than $12,000 a year in gross income for your business. A lot of people see that $12,000 and they stop there. It doesn't matter if you make $2. If you're doing business using other than your full legal name, you have to have a business license. You're probably not going to have to pay state taxes. You're not for $2, but you have to have a business license. If you have any employees, other than yourself as the owner who's technically not an employee, or you're gonna have employees within the next 90 days, you have to have a business license. Or for where we are here in Grant County, if your business address, no matter any of these other things, so even if you're working at your house, a few blocks away from where we are right now at the library, if your business is located in Ephrata, Moses Lake, Othello, any part of Grant County, you have to have a business license. The only outlier, and there's 4 other cities, is Colfax. Colfax is a weird space where you don't have to have a city license. If you're in Pullman, you sure do. And there are some businesses that work in both spaces, so you have to have one for one and not the other. So Colfax is a weird outlier. If you're running a business in Colfax that's not collecting sales tax, you have no employees, you're working under your name, you don't have to have a license. There's 4 others, and I should memorize them. They're all west side, and we only work east of the Cascades, so I don't have to yet. But if you're in Colfax, you want to work in Colfax, talk to me. You do have to have a state license for some of these, but you don't have to have a city endorsement. It's a weird outlier. But what is doing business? I did use the Spokane definition, but everybody's municipal code looks almost exactly the same because most states and cities and municipalities use uniform codes of law and they adopt the same language. So business includes all activities, occupations, trades, pursuits, which I really like that word, professions, and matters located or engaged within the city with the object of gain, benefit, or advantage. So basically, if you're selling things, trying to sell things, exchanging money, services, performances. When we did our gig worker training last year, we worked with a lot of dancers and aerialists and folks offering a pursuit or a profession. You're not giving someone something other than the pleasure of your performance. You're doing business. Directly or indirectly. So they really just use every word they could to say everything is a business if you're making money off of it. It's not your side gig, it's not your hobby. There's some hobby things for federal tax considerations, which I might touch on here, and you can certainly reach out to us for that. But for the state's purposes, you need a business license. You are running a business. Even if you're not successful in your business, especially when you're starting out and you're just figuring it out and you're giving things away to your family all the time, you're running a business. How do you get a business license? It's easy. There's 3 ways. You can go to the Department of Revenue's website. Again, that's a live link, and apply online. That is the easiest, fastest way. It takes about 10 business days to process your business license through the Department of Revenue's website. It's also where you're going to file, and I say possibly pay, state business and occupation taxes and remit retail sales tax. I'll talk about that more in a moment. The other 2 ways are to go to your local office if you're in a city that has a local office. Moses Lake has one, Ephrata does not. Spokane has one. I will say the local offices are usually staffed about part-time. So if you're going to the local office, go to the LNI website and see their hours. The Spokane one is like 8 to 12 and then 2 to 3, strange hours, not open Friday. So I imagine Moses Lake is similar and possibly less staffed. So definitely look online if you're gonna go in person. The 3rd way is to print off the business license application from the Department of Revenue's website and mail it in. If you do it in person at one of the offices, you get your business license immediately. If you do it by mailing it in and printing it, it can take 4 to 6 weeks. And if you're literally ready to start doing business, you're technically not supposed to start till you have your license. So definitely wait for that. B&O, business and occupation taxes. Some people say business and occupancy tax. Doesn't matter. It's just basically the income tax for your business. You're always going to have to file those taxes. Washington has a ton of small business tax credits that are applied, so you're probably not going to have to pay until you're well over that $12,000. It's usually over $50,000 threshold for just the income you earn in your business. You always have to provide sales tax that you've collected. The cost of your license will depend on where your business is located. If you have a business that works in multiple places regularly, you need to have a license in those places. If you have a one-off event where you came to Ephrata for a farmer's market, but you're located in Spokane, you can get a temporary license for that and not pay the full endorsement. King County makes you pay a full endorsement. So if you do anything in Seattle, regardless of where you're located, you have to get that separate one. It's gonna vary. But for example, if you have a business within the city of Ephrata's limits, it's about $150 a year Spokane County, everywhere is about 186. It's north of 200 in King County. It's $19 in Colfax for the state portion of the license. The state portion of the license is $19 plus a processing fee. So the additional money, it's about $120. That actually goes to the city of Ephrata. So the beauty of also having your business license within the cities you're working in is it's supporting that community. That $120 stays in Ephrata. And your sales tax, a third to 2/3, depending on where you're located, stays in the city you're working in. So when we talk about local businesses, because that's what we care about at SIMBA, independent and local, when you are giving your money to a local business, and I know some of you local business owners who are on the Zoom, 85 to 90% of that dollar stays in your community. Versus if you're going to the Amazon or the Walmart, that's a few blocks away from here, about 10 to 15% stays here. So many reasons to support local, that is one of them. And that business license fee supports your community. You have to renew your business license every single year. It's about the same rate every year. Spokane was at $175 for 15 years and it went up to $186. So it's pretty slow for them to renew. Other things to know. You're supposed to apply before you start doing business. Is someone going to come to your house and see that you've sold 2 candles before you got your license? No. But you should, and especially if you have a retail space, you're public facing, you're at a farmer's market, you're advertising. Certain folks who work for the state of the Department of Revenue are kind of mandatory reporters who, if they know you're operating and don't have it, they have to tell people you don't have your license. Especially if you're hiring an employee, because there's so much paperwork behind that. And if you want to talk to us about that, we've got great videos and happy to speak to you about getting ready to hire an employee and best practices. We're not covering that today, but you need that business license. So give yourself time. If you have a public facing business, a coffee shop, a restaurant, you rebuild cars, not remodel cars, then you need to have your business license displayed somewhere conspicuous. What does that mean? It means where people can see it. I think about when I go to the hair salon, I can always see the business license for the person doing my hair while I'm sitting in the chair. It doesn't have to be taped to your front door, but it has to be somewhere conspicuous. If you work at home by yourself, you don't have to have it displayed. You just have to have it. You may need multiple city endorsements. I covered that if you're working in different places. It depends on how long you're working there. Each city and county has different rules about how long you can do that. The Department of Revenue's website will help you. We can help you. And you have to have your business license at least 90 days before you hire an employee. And you have to get an employee and a minor employee discount or endorsement if you're working with them. Those cost more money. The $150 in Ephrata wouldn't include an employee endorsement. That costs a bit more money. The $186 in Spokane is without employees. It costs a bit more, not significantly more, but they want to get you in the system, make sure your employees are getting all their benefits and all the things that come with having employees in the state of Washington. And again, we're going to send you all these slides. They'll also be on the recording, so don't feel like you have to memorize all of this. And I'm happy to answer questions about business licensing all day. I know my staff knows it's my favorite topic. The other beauty of business licensing is your trade name, or you're doing business as your DBA. Registering your business in the state of Washington allows you to apply for a trade name or a business name that you can use completely by yourself, and no other Washington state business can use it. Think of it as your first way into a trademark or other kinds of intellectual property that you've got to be further down the road. You need to hire a specific kind of attorney to do. It's going to cost you a lot of money. But if you are Sally's Cleaning Services of Spokane and you have registered your trade name for $10 a year, nobody else can use that name but you. The state will not issue that business name. And so it's protecting your business as you're building your brand. And again, it doesn't even have to be the same name if you have an LLC or a corporation. If you think about the Coca-Cola Corporation, they actually own a ton of things. They own Dasani, they own Sprite, they own Coke, they own Powerade. They own all those trade names and all the trademarks. So you could have an LLC that is Alexis Business Services and you run Opal's Cat Cafe. So you can have your LLC a different name and you can have as many trade names as you want. One of our board members has a business that is fully retail and they're trying to make it wholesale, and they might have different names for that. So you're certainly able to have those at $10 a pop and keep them from somebody else. Taxes and bookkeeping. Everyone's least favorite topic and the question we get asked most about. And the only tip I will give you is keep your records. Even if you don't use QuickBooks or Zoho or FreshBooks or fill in the blank software system, even if you aren't balancing your bank statement at the end of the month, although I will encourage you to do that, keep your receipts. Technically, it's 5 years, 3 years for the state of Washington, but it's 5 years from when your taxes were due. So if you haven't filed your taxes for several years, it's only 5 years from when you've paid, or filed those taxes, excuse me, not paid. Keep them. Odds of getting audited get lower and lower by the minute as we cut federal government employees. The state government sometimes audits you, though, if you aren't filing that state tax. And the other thing that is really important is, let's say you want to bring on a business partner and they want to look at your books, or you want to apply for a loan, or even certain grants that are pretty rare for for-profits but occur occasionally. They want to see your financials, and if you have no records, it's really hard to reproduce those. And bookkeeping is not having an online bank statement. It's more than that, but it doesn't have to be super complicated, especially for businesses small. So common mistakes: federal tax planning, lack of oversight of finances. What does that mean? You have your friend running your books and you trust them, but they don't know what they're doing. You can't read your financial statements. You are the worst thing. You are mixing your business and personal expenses. If you have a business, even if you're a sole proprietor using a DBA, have a business bank account and do not run your personal expenses from there. It makes it really hard to ever apply for loans. It makes it hard to bring on a business partner. It doesn't tell you the story of how much money you've made. You don't even really know if you're successful in business because you're mixing those things. Is it fine if, I thought my coffee was still over here, I was gonna hold it up. Is it fine if every once in a while you buy a personal coffee with your business account? Of course. But your everyday coffee run over to the Bookery or wherever else you're going in Grant County should not be run through your business account. Don't pay your rent personally. Don't pay your mortgage. None of those things should be happening. Another common mistake, and this is one that makes a ton of sense, is not knowing regulatory and tax requirements, because the tax code is complicated. If you've ever looked at a book of the tax code, it's over 1,000 pages. And those are just the rules. And then there's a separate set of regulations that go with that. That is also thousands of pages. You don't need to know all of it. You just need to know the things that apply to your business. Or you need to hire professionals who know what they're doing. It doesn't have to be a CPA. Can be a bookkeeper. Can be a trusted advisor who knows what they're doing. Not paying your taxes. Obvious, feels obvious. Always surprised by people who don't pay your taxes. The one tax you should always pay, the IRS is slow to audit your personal taxes, your business taxes. They are not slow for payroll taxes. If you have an employee and you do not pay your payroll taxes, the IRS issues penalties the day they are late, like the very next day. The penalties are severe. And here's the thing about payroll taxes. They will garnish your personal bank account, even if you have a business bank account, if you haven't paid your payroll taxes. I think about this as someone who runs a nonprofit. If a nonprofit doesn't pay their payroll taxes, and we would never miss it, both the executive director, who is just a staff person, and our board, who are just volunteers, could get their bank accounts garnished. So if you're going to skip any tax payment, don't let it be your payroll tax. And then when you're looking to expand, which we'll talk about in a bit, and cash flow issues, particularly if you're not looking at your funds and you're mixing your business and personal accounts, you might not know how much money you're actually making, how much you're actually spending. You want to know what your business income and your business expenses are. So finding a system that works for you is great. It doesn't have to be QuickBooks. I'm going to say if you're starting out, it shouldn't be QuickBooks. QuickBooks is expensive. It does a lot of things that aren't necessary for a small business. FreshBooks is a great starting point. They have a free version that's incredible. They have an $8 a month version that does everything that QuickBooks does. And if you're ready to switch to something else, they let you download your data in a way that's easy. QuickBooks does not. And we are on QuickBooks. I'm not knocking QuickBooks, but you need to be where you are and know what you can do. And don't waste all your money on accounting software. I will say before SIMBA got on the nonprofit version of QuickBooks, it cost us $200 a month to have QuickBooks and run our payroll. That is a massive expense if you're starting your business that you don't want. $0 or $8 a month feels like a great expense. Be ready to plan year-round for your federal taxes. You should at least look at your financials quarterly. The reason you have to do that is if you're running a business, you're supposed to pay estimated payments to the IRS every quarter. If you don't, you get a small penalty. Some people choose not to, and they just pay the penalty. But technically, the IRS wants your money every quarter because they're not getting payroll deductions from you because you're a business owner. You might want to consider making a large year-end investment in buying a piece of equipment or a piece of software or a retirement plan as a business owner. There's a number of those. SEP is a good one, Simplified Employee Plan, certain kinds of other products to allow you to pay less money to the IRS and more money to yourself. Checking for obsolete inventory or uncollectible debt so you can write them off. If you don't know what your expenses are, if you don't know what your inventory is, you're not going to be able to know what that is. We've definitely dealt with a business who every time they did inventory for their retail space, they just bought a new one of everything. And then suddenly they had 50 sweatshirts they hadn't sold, but none of the product that was selling. And they couldn't offload those and they lost a bunch of money. So having an inventory system, even if it's a spreadsheet, Google spreadsheets are free. If you are a cash-based business, there are so few cash-based businesses. In Spokane, Delmany Sandwiches was cash-based until just maybe 5 or 6 years ago. You can be more flexible in how you're tracking because you can track when you receive that income differently versus credit card income. If you're taking credit card payments, your credit card provider is giving a statement to the IRS of all the payments you receive by month. So they're going to know. My favorite thing is business deductions. And again, if you came to this training session, you know this was done by the CPA Amber Jasmine from the Jasmine Group, a SIMBA member who we love, who also is SIMBA's accountant. When I just do a tax training, I usually throw in here the write-off video from Schitt's Creek where they say it's a write-off and it's like luxury sheets and skincare, and odds are low, and I know everyone in the Zoom are not people who can write off luxury skincare and sheets, but maybe if you're running a hotel or you're an esthetician, you could. But common actual business deductions are things like your home office. If you have a dedicated space in your home that is for your office, not your guest room where you put up the laptop and you move it when grandma comes to visit, that's not a home office. But a dedicated space, even if it's a corner of a room that's dedicated, you can deduct both a portion of your rent or lease based on square footage or mortgage. You can deduct a portion of your utilities, your internet, your insurance. If it's your personal home, any property taxes or home improvements or repairs for your home office. Again, dedicated space. We can help you with the calculation on that and provide you a sample home office lease from yourself to your business. Office supplies, paper, pens, highlighters, fill in the blank. Business travel expenses, not your personal travel expenses. Let's say you went to a conference though and you spent a little time, it's in Hawaii. I feel like there's always conferences in Hawaii. I never understand why we travel to a beautiful place to be in a windowless conference room, but that's just me. But let's say you go to the conference for 3 days and there's 3 more days where you spend personally. Your travel related to your business counts, your airfare probably counts because you had to get there and back, but the 3 extra days in the hotel don't. Your phone and your internet, if you're using your personal cell phone, you can deduct a portion of it that's attributable to your business. Same with your internet. If it's your home internet, you can deduct a portion of that. It just has to be reasonable. Business meals. So again, that morning coffee is not a business meal, but if you're traveling, if you're meeting with clients, you're meeting with colleagues, you can deduct that. That's only a 50% deduction because the IRS assumes you have to eat anyway. Your morning coffee with yourself is not a business meal. Any business startup costs, we just talked about your business license, $150 to $180. If you get an LLC, that's $200 right now. Corporation is $200. If you pay for a website, which could run you north of $10,000 if you're hiring someone, or $50 a month on Squarespace. If you have to put a deposit down on a lease, things you're paying for yourself because you don't have a business account yet, those are business startup costs. Any legal and professional fees, legal, straightforward, you hire a lawyer for something, professional, accountants, bookkeepers, people involved in marketing, registered agents, those are all professional fees that you can deduct. Automobile expenses, if you drive your personal vehicle for your business, you have to track that. There's a lot of mileage apps. A spreadsheet is also great. Bank interest and fees. If you have a credit card, the amount of fees you're being charged. A lot of business bank accounts charge fees. If you are earning interest, which feels like we just pay interest, and every time the interest rate goes up, it never goes up in the savings account. Not really sure why, but that's also a deduction. Any advertising or promotions, business cards, banners for your table at a farmer's market, social media ads, Google ads, print ads, pretty rare these days, but print ads, those all count. Cost of any license or certification. If you are a hairstylist or you work in construction and you need a specially licensed, a cottage license to cook from your home, those are deductions. Business insurance, liability insurance, property insurance. If you rent a space, you're going to need rental insurance for your business. You can deduct all of that. Any business-related education. If you need a certification, you're in marketing, you want to take a class on how to be better at TikTok, which Alexis will talk to you about shortly. Any of those courses are deductions. If you have a license where you have continuing ed requirements, you're a teacher, you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, those are deductions. If you're paying for your health insurance, which we all are in the American system, that's deduction. Student loan interest is still a deduction. That one is cut off if you earn more than $75,000 a year in adjusted income, but you can deduct that. And it fades away. I don't remember what the number is updated, but it fades off after there. If you're making contributions to a retirement plan, which I highly recommend if you're a small business owner and at the end of the year you're owing a lot of taxes, to get a retirement plan. I mentioned a SEP. The beauty of a SEP, which is a simplified employee plan, is that you can put away each year 25% of your net income, which could be higher than the amount you can put into a traditional IRA. Qualified business income deduction is a weird one to talk to an accountant about, and I should have filled that out. But there are certain additional deductions if you reach a certain threshold of income to lower your taxes. And the self-employment tax. Because you're not a W-2 employee, you're not paying taxes to the IRS. You don't get your FICA off of your paycheck. So you have to pay self-employment tax, which is 15%. And so you get to deduct that. So the amount you're actually taxed on is all of your income minus all of your deductions. It has to be actual deductions of money you actually spent. Unfortunately, write-offs aren't free. You still have to pay for the items. I remember years ago when I was running a small business and I had to buy a computer. And my then assistant, whose name was also Alexis, I guess I like hiring people named Alexis, said, oh, well, it's a write-off. I'm like, well, yeah, but I still have to go to Best Buy or whatever and spend $800. That income's not coming back to me. I'm just going to be taxed a little bit less. Keep track of all of these things. If you're using things like FreshBooks, QuickBooks, accounting software, it will track them into categories for you. So at the end of the year, you just run some reports to see your accountant to do your taxes. Again, you're supposed to pay quarterly taxes. Q1, January, February, March, is due April 15th. Q2 is due June 15th, which again, doesn't feel like a full quarter. April, May, June is due in the middle of June. Third quarter is due September 15th and then January 15th. So a lot of people end up making a larger payment in January, or they take the credit. A bookkeeper or CPA can help you work through the best ways to handle this. I always recommend you should pay it. Even if you're not going to pay it though, set aside 10 to 25% of your business income into a savings account, which will earn you a little bit more money to at least have if you're going to absorb that penalty at the end of the year. The penalty is not huge for not paying, but it does exist and they do charge you it and they will not waive it. And by they, I mean the IRS. They're not the friendliest organization. But what about that business tax that we talked about, the business and occupancy tax for Washington State? You are taxed on the gross amount. There are almost no deductions that really qualify unless you're in some specialty industries. Most of the folks that SIMBA worked with are in service or retail spaces. There's not a lot of deductions there. It's on your total amount. You're either going to pay monthly, quarterly, or annually. Monthly filers are people who collect a lot of sales tax. So every restaurant's a monthly filer. Every coffee stand, which Washington is full of them, is a monthly filer. Quarterly is most common for small businesses. Annual is folks who are making a lot less money. It's really, truly a side gig. A lot of folks in performing spaces who don't have a history of earning as much are usually annual filers. Again, every business pays it. The rate is really low. It's going to vary by the kind of business you are, but generally what happens is you go to file, let's say you made $12,000 in your quarter, you're going to get this small business tax credit that's going to write it off. So you have to file. There's a penalty if you don't file, so definitely file. Odds are you're not going to have to pay until you're at a higher revenue level. You pay through the Department of Revenue on what's called an excise tax return. You can do it on paper. I do not recommend it because the paper form is 4 to 6 pages long and it asks you about every possible kind of business or tax credit that you're not doing. So you may be creating websites from your home. It's going to ask you if you have a salmon fishery. It's going to ask you if you're engaged in logging. It's going to talk about credits for offshore importing and other things. Do it online. The first time you do it, it'll take you through all the categories, but then it will be set up for the kind of business you have and only have the categories that you normally use. You can always add or subtract if you add a line of business or you work in a new space, but it's very easy. If you're a monthly filer, it's due the 25th of the month after. So we are in May. So your monthly filing for May will be due June 25th. Quarterly, it's the end of the month of the next month. So for quarterly filers, it is, let's say quarter 1, January, February, March. It's due April 30th. Annually, for the prior year, it's due by April 15th, just like federal taxes. SIMBA will sit down with you as many times as you want to help you file your B&O and sales tax and help you through that. Usually people only need one time. We are happy to do it more than once with you. Social media. I'm going to trade off to my colleague Alexis to talk about this.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis with SIMBA. Today we're going to talk about some fun stuff. We're going to take a break for the fun, and we're going to talk about social media and kind of just how to utilize it as a business, how to use it the best you can. Is it the other way? Okay. So social media is really important for many reasons. One, it increases brand awareness. So it's great to get people online, but also in person. It's just another added customer service and engagement, another way for you to interact and engage with your customers. Hopefully, if you are using it correctly, it drives traffic to your website, in person if you have a storefront. It's also a great way to see like what people are wanting, what customers are wanting, so you gain insight. Highlight all of your offerings, so products, services, and then also it's a great way to foster collaboration and networking opportunity. It's a great way to get to know other businesses, other customers, influencers, all that fun stuff. There we go. So I like to start by picking your your social media platform. The most popular is Facebook for sure. I know recently it's been getting a lot of hate. and one of those people is me. But I think it's still the most widely used platform and usually has the most interaction and most engagement. It's also, majority of people on there are from ages 25 to 54. So it has a little bit bigger demographic, and you can get kind of more of an older demographic too. A lot of people are on Facebook. They value connection, community, authentic interactions with brands. It's great if you're wanting to have groups. I know we use that feature. And then also, they're usually looking at recommendations, reviews, and they just like to follow businesses that they support and they shop at and frequent at. It's great for event promotion, building brand communities. Also, they have really good analyzing data, so you can go onto like your Meta dashboard and you can see what people are really engaging on, and that's the same for Instagram behind the scenes. And there's lots of different variety of content formats, so you can upload videos, you can upload links, photos, events. You can go on Marketplace and buy a dresser. There's lots of things you can do on there. So, and then there's Instagram, which is connected to Facebook. They're owned by Mark Zuckerberg. So they make it pretty easy to use now, hand in hand. Instagram is definitely, you're going to be reaching a younger audience from 18 to 34 usually. They value aesthetics, creativity, and authenticity. So very big on visuals. You are actually, all you can do is visuals, so videos, and post stories. You can post just normal posts. I guess videos are called reels, I should clarify that. And they're strongly influenced by visually appealing content, authentic brand stories, people who are just really engaged, people who just have their camera just in front of you, just engaged with the audience. It's great for brand awareness, showcasing products, fostering partnerships, promoting visual content, and engaging with more of a millennial and Gen Z audience. One added bonus is that you can usually just post, if you're posting to Instagram, you can also post to Facebook and vice versa. And then there's TikTok, which I don't know if it's going to be around very much longer, but it's definitely a newer platform. But it's been around now, actually. It really became popular during the pandemic. It's definitely a younger audience. I'm not even in that age group anymore, apparently. Definitely values entertainment, creativity, transparency, highly engaged buyers who frequently discover new products through creative and entertaining videos. I'm definitely one of those people that influencers love because I'm easily influenced. Like, I'll get anything if I see it, I'm like, I want it. So TikTok always works on me. Also, it's great for short form content, reaching a younger audience, engaging in trending topics. It's a little bit easier to be trending on there and also find what's trending on there. Sharing real life relatable content. Usually the kind of content that I think is more relatable on TikTok is people who are just giving a review of a simple video that's just reviewing a product. Those always seem to get me. Other platforms that are out there and used is Pinterest. Pinterest is great, again, for like visuals and linking back to like your website usually. It's one that you have to post pretty consistently, like 2 to 3 times a day. It's not just like a get on there and leave it, but it's very oversaturated, so you have to constantly be posting. And then there's LinkedIn, which is our favorite here at SIMBA. LinkedIn is great for business to business. So if you're like a graphic design artist, you're an accountant, anything like that, you should definitely be on LinkedIn. That is where you'll want to be. It is actually growing in popularity as well. And then there's YouTube, which is really great for like video content. Like, we always upload all of our workshops on there. But so yeah, more so video content. I always say like people who are performers in the entertainment industry, it's a great platform for that. And then there's X, which I'm not sure who's still on there, but formerly known as Twitter. That's one I usually don't recommend for businesses, but then there's Threads, which is like X, but connected through Instagram. And that one is kind of growing as well. But I think you just really need to focus on the platforms that fit your target audience. Your target audience refers to a specific group of people, business, organization, or content creator aims to reach with their products, services, or messaging. I usually say your target audience is not you. You have to think outside of the box. And also a good way to think of your target audience is to think of your best customer, anyone that you had a really good interaction with, someone who's always come back, who always is leaving you good reviews. That's probably going to be your target audience. And yeah, just thinking outside of the box as well. Sometimes I think that we get caught up of like, well, I wouldn't like that, or I don't use that. You have to think of your target audience and what would they be using and how to get a hold of them. So finding your target audience, you want to ask yourself a couple questions. What does my product or service solve for this person? What are their age, gender, income, education level, and occupation? What values, interests, attitudes, and lifestyle shape their behavior? Where do they search for new products or services? So like if they're on the younger demographic, you're probably going to want to focus on social media. If they're an older demographic, you might just want to focus on print ads, TV slots, magazines, something like that. Are there cultural, social, or economic factors affecting their decision making? So one thing that I notice a lot is some people are very cautious of who they like to support. So like let's say they want to shop sustainable. You're probably going to want to promote that you're sustainable because that target demographic really values that. So just kind of noticing what factors that affect their decision making. And then also what is really important when they are considering a new product or service. Do reviews really matter to them? Let's say that I'm one of the people, like if they have a good brand, like branding and good visuals, I'm such a sucker for that, and I will totally buy things based on how cool their branding is. But you kind of have to consider what people in your target audience are like. I think that's a millennial thing. And then you want to know your customer's journey. Your customer journey is the series of steps that a customer client follows when engaging with your company or brand. By understanding each phase, you can kind of know where you need to position yourself in that process and how to nurture those customers. There's different phases. So your awareness phase is how you're introduced to a potential customer. Introduce potential customers to your brand or product. That's usually if someone sees like your website on Google or anything like that, or they see just something pops up an ad on Instagram. Consideration phase, position your product or service as the best solution. And then conversion phase, that's the most important phase, is that's how you convert a potential customer into paying clients. So you want to be catching customers at that conversion phase, either if it's online, like social media, or even if it's like in newspapers or magazines, something like that. That's where you want to convert and focus most of your attention on, is that conversion phase. And then after you have a customer or client, you want to keep your customer engaged and satisfied post-purchase, whether that's like follow-up, sending them a discount code, having them join your newsletter. And then advocacy phase, you transform a satisfied customer into a brand advocate. And that's when they're most likely going to refer you out and have their friends and family use your services or go shop online or in person. Now, there's different kinds of content you can make on social media, and it's best to kind of make a variety of different content so that it's not super sales promotion heavy, because those kind of posts just doesn't get as much engagement if you're not filling it with other types of content. So there's a good way to organize it so that it keeps it a variety and a little bit different topics. The one is about me / brand. That's when you want to use content that builds trust and showcase the human side of your brand, highlighting what makes your company unique. So those kind of include personal stories, company milestones, team employee spotlights, and customer success stories. So even just like posting once a month a reminder of who's your team, the story behind your brand, the story behind your company or business, that's going to be your best choice. Or even just keeping it on your pinned posts where people can really get access to that really quick and easy. Connection post or category fosters a sense of connection by providing value and supporting your audience's needs and interests. So how-to guides, tutorials, practical tips, anything like that. One that I always like to use, for example, is like I used to work at a furniture store, and we would always show how to style a bookcase because not a lot of people knew how to, and it's like so easy, and people loved it. People were like, wow, this is really useful. So just giving a little bit of a free tidbit tip to your audience, they kind of get that trust and value your input a little bit more. And then education content or categories, position your brand as authority by offering useful knowledge and insight relevant to your industry or niche. So informative posts, articles, data, research. Like I have a realtor friend, and he always is posting different kinds of like housing trends in Spokane, which I think is so nice, and it makes me like, wow, this guy knows a lot. But just showing like that you have that expertise. And then seasonal, which is really nice and easy. Engage with your audience during specific times of the year. Aligning content with relevant themes of like what's going on in the moment. So holiday themes posts are really easy. Seasonal tips, trending topic, event specific content. Even if you just kind of have something in your town that people focus on, like turning that into a post. Like I see a lot of cool content around like Bloomsday or Hoop Fest in Spokane. So even just making content around things that's going around in your city or town, that's a good one. And then you can sprinkle in your promotional content. So that is where you actually want to promote your products or services. So if you have a product launch, announcements, specific discounts, customer testimonials, that is where you want to start sprinkling those in. Because you don't want to just not have any salesy posts. You do have to kind of sprinkle those in, but that is your time to do it. And then there's entertainment. So that's when you want to entertain or delight your audience, making your brand more memorable or relatable. Memes, but be careful with your memes. Quotes, behind the scenes footage, quizzes, polls, and fun challenges. I always tell people like polls or quizzes are a good way for engagement. And then also, anytime you post something, make sure you're in your caption trying to get engagement in the comments. So like if you say, hey, leave a comment of your favorite such and such, or whatever that's kind of related to the post, that's a good way to get engagement on there. And then collaborative. So expand your reach by tapping into new audiences, building strong partnerships with other brands or influencers. We have one in Spokane that I always use as an example. It's a bunch of breweries, and they are all kind of near each other in a way. They're within a couple blocks, and they just made an Instagram where all together they all are the West End Brew Club. And they all just kind of collaborate and feed off of each other, and they do. So that's really a good way to like partner, and also it's obviously not like they're not viewing each other as competition, more of just collaborations, and people can go and bar hop now. So yeah, you can do cross promotion, guest posts, joint giveaways, and then co-branding content. So anything that like there's partnerships that kind of fit with your brand or your services or products, just try and collaborate off of that. Some good tips to use: be authentic, don't be real, share your human side. People like to interact with businesses that they feel a connection with the owner. I will definitely, I'm one of those people who, if I just meet someone, a business owner, and I have a good vibe with them, I'll probably buy something because I want to support them. So I think that's really the most case for a lot of people. Post regularly and maintain a cohesive visual identity. So make sure you're posting at least a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week. I would even throw like one reel in at least once a week. And then also just consistently be posting stories or any stuff like that. That way you're just on top of people's feed, and that you're not, also the algorithm likes it when you post more. Engage, don't just broadcast. So make sure you're responding to comments, sharing content, participating in conversations, replying to messages. So liking things, all those kind of things. Invest in good images and videos that reflect your brand's aesthetic. So just everyone now, I feel like, can take good photos with it if you have an iPhone. But yeah, just making sure you're having good content. And then also, like, get Canva. I literally am like a Canva spokesperson right now, but I'm not getting paid. But just get Canva. You can put all of your brands, colors, logos, branding in there. So that way you are just kind of consistently having the same graphics, branding, all that stuff. And then optimize for each platform. So just make sure you're adjusting it to, like, let's say if there's a different size for Instagram than there is for Facebook, just making sure you're adjusting that. I know Instagram just changed their post size, and it's thrown me off a lot trying to switch. But just make sure you're posting the right sizes. I made that mistake.
Alexis, could you talk about some of the things, Instagram, for example, that are engagement things like polls and Q&A and those kinds of things that are available, and how that might help with your brand?
Yeah, so having polls, Q&As, those are really useful because you're getting feedback from them. They're really easy to do. You can do it usually through your stories, and then you can just post it to a post. But yeah, being engaged, even doing like lives, those are always nice. I see a lot of businesses who do lives, and they're like at a farmer's market, and they're kind of just showing what's going on. But yeah, just making sure, and it's also just different content. So you're not always trying to come up with like new crazy out of the box thing. You can just be like, what do you guys want to see? Like, what do you want from me? And making it so it's like related to your content, and then, or not your content, but to your product or services. And then it's like good feedback, and it's also a good post, so you don't have to think too hard about it. So some common mistakes are inconsistent posting. Like I said, be consistent. If you're only posting like once a month, the algorithm gods, that's what I like to call them, they don't really push out your stuff as much. Also, when you are posting, make sure that you, after a posting, you are going through and engaging in things. So like liking, comments, commenting on other content, just making sure you're actually engaged, because if you just go post and then log off, it's not a good look. They don't like that. So making sure, I kind of touched on this earlier, just making sure that you're not posting too much like promotional salesy stuff. So that's why just getting a variety of content is important, because it kind of just can lead to audience fatigue. I'm definitely one of those. Like, if I see too much of the same thing, I'm just like, I'm gonna unfollow them, or I'm gonna like mute them or something. Just, I'm tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. And then lack of planning. So make sure, I would just do this like once a month. Just sit down and just really plan out your content for the whole month, and just lay out all the different kind of categories, all the different topics. Have a list of all the holidays that are coming up, all the sales, promotional things you're doing, anything that's going on in the community, and just planning it out for a month, because going week by week or even day by day, you're gonna get a little more burnt out, versus if you have a plan, get a calendar in front of you. There's lots of cool softwares where you can just actually plan your content and then just have it all scheduled out and post, and it'll post for you. So that's really nice. I know Canva does that. You do have to pay for the upgraded version. But yeah, just making sure you have like a consistent strategy is really useful and helpful. And then also, you know what to do, and you're more likely going to post than if you're just going by like winging it. You're probably not going to post. And then also ignoring trends. That's easy content. So if you see something's trending and something's funny, people love those. Like, I know we did one with the demure trend, and that one got so much attention. People like trends, and you have to be kind of quick, because they're like, at least on TikTok trends go like that, versus Instagram, they're a little late to the game and you can kind of tell more. But trends go really quick, and just making sure you're using them and they make sense with your brand, and hey, they're really funny. People like it. One business is the Kitty Cantina in Spokane. They always do the best reels that are like super trendy, and like they just make it work, and I like those ones. Also, they have cats on there. Who doesn't like cats? So yeah, that's kind of it. That was just a condensed version, but like Robin said earlier, like if there's anything you want to expand, like web design, social media, calendar, content, I can always meet with you, or like SEO, Google business, anything like that, just book with SIMBA and we can meet together. So yeah.
Question before you go. Can you talk about, I know you talked about other sessions, about engaging with other businesses? I know you mentioned Weston Brewery, but how does that help drive the content? How does that help drive your engagement? How important is that?
I would say it's pretty important because, and it's also you're getting someone else's audience. So you're like people who've maybe never heard of you or who follow someone else, they're gonna now hear of you. So cross promoting is really important. Instagram made it really easy now. You can do collaborative posts. So yeah, even if it's like one that we used to do all the time when I worked at a furniture store, we would collaborate with realtors because usually their audience was buying a new house. And when you buy a new house, you probably want to get some new furniture. So just making those kind of align, those good connections. Like let's say if you're a bookstore, you probably want to collaborate with like maybe some book talk people who promote books and stuff like that. So local art, like authors, poetry people, like stuff like artists and stuff. So just making sure it kind of works, and that way you're just getting a whole other person's audience basically.
Question from the chat: how do collaborative posts work? Like, how do you create them?
Oh, they're cool. So basically under the tag, this is for Instagram, I'm assuming. This is under the tagging. There's a place where you can do collaborators, and you can invite them to become a collaborator. And the person who you're inviting, they can accept it or not accept it, obviously. And then once they accept, it will be on both of their profiles, if that makes sense. So both of those, all the likes will go to the same, all of the engagement, all of that will be the same post. It'll just have two Instagram accounts listed. Yeah, it's fun. But also you like a lot of people will just like invite a lot of people to collaborate. Just be, it has to make sense. Sometimes we get like weird like reviews and I'm like, we're not part of this. I don't know what this is for. So yeah, just make sure you're like collaborating and it actually makes sense. Yeah, don't just send them to everyone. Yeah, I think you can only invite like 10 people to collaborate. So it's pretty much, there's a lot. Awesome.
Switching again. All right, business goals. Again, this is going to be a detailed snapshot. The Clarkston training that got rescheduled because your speaker got sick and was not ready to have food poisoning in a drive from Spokane to Clarkston. That one will actually happen next week and be online. So this is a preview if you're going to the Clarkston event about some of the things we're going to talk about. But business goals, again, like I said, are not just, I want to make more money. It's not, I want more customers or I want more social media followers, or that's a good goal. I really want to drive home in this lesson how to make actionable goals that are measurable, achievable, that have some kind of metrics behind them. I think about business goals a lot like New Year's resolutions. When we talk about goals, especially with new businesses, I just want to make $1 million. We all do. $1 million seem like fewer and fewer dollars the older I get. Especially when I talk about my friends and buying houses on the west side of the state. And I'm like, oh, that's a teardown for $1 million. But probably the most common goal in America for New Year's resolution is I want to lose weight. How many people make that goal every year? Join a gym and do nothing, and they have no plan, they have no measure, and then all of a sudden it's our goal again. You don't need to raise your hands. We've all been there. And it's because we've just said, I want to do this. It's the same as I want to make more money. Well, what does that mean and how do I get there? So I'm going to give you one tool in this session. If you come to the Clarkston one, I'll give you 2 tools. There are tons of ways to do it. There's all kinds of theories of business. There are all kinds of people who write books about how do I achieve business goals. And for those folks, they make their business goal by making you buy their book. And I will tell you that none of them do anything but give you a way to track, a metric to track, and a way to refine your goals. So whatever method you use, even if it's not the one I talk about today or in the other training, know that you probably don't need a book to do it. You're welcome to spend your hard-earned business income on a non-business expense to buy Tony Robbins' latest fill-in-the-blank. I'm sure there are other people in that space, or I see a lot of businesses doing girl bossing. I don't know if there's a phrase I hate more than that one, but finding something that works for you, finding a way to track it, and language you like is going to get you where you need to go. And it's going to require some understanding of things, probably your finances, but you don't need to have a specific system. You just need to have some tools, and they could be very simple. So let's talk about, what is a business goal? Again, have you set them for your small business? What kind of goals have you set? Is it increasing sales over the last month? Is it, let's say you have a small business Saturday sale every year. And I know the folks SIMBA work with always have a small business Saturday sale. Are you going to try to earn $1,000 more than the year before? Are you going to get 10 more customers? Are you going to get 50 more people following your Instagram because you did a collaborative post with the business and everyone wanted to talk to you? What is that goal? Other goals I like are, do I want to hire an employee? Am I ready to hire an employee? Do I want to go from working at home to working in a space? What is that going to cost me? Those are reasonable, measurable goals. People talk a lot about business goals and performance metrics, or KPIs, which I'll give you the definition of shortly. A goal is what you want to achieve at the end. So again, the human example, I want to lose weight. What is that metric? Is it 15 pounds? Is it 4% body fat? That's the number. KPI is the same thing. So your goal is what you want to do. The metric is whatever thing you're measuring in a quantifiable way, in a number, to get there. What's a business goal and a business strategy? Your strategy is your business identity. Alexis talks a lot about being authentic. Who do you want to work with? How do you want to work? What do you care about? Is it making a bunch of money? Is it having authentic customer engagement, perhaps making less money? Is it serving a certain clientele? That's your strategy. That's who you are. That doesn't really change. Your goal is, what pieces am I going to do to get there? And do you have a business plan? And I don't mean an idea, things you've kicked around with your buddies. I mean a formal business plan, which we'll talk about in a bit. And obviously, having ideas with your buddies, brainstorming with your staff, brainstorming with like-minded small business owners is great. But when I use business plan in this setting for goal setting, I mean a formal document. Document, not physical, can be physical, also electronic. So definition. So a business goal is where your business wants to end up and defines your strategy's expected achievement. So SIMBA has been in the middle of strategic planning, which for-profit and nonprofit businesses do. And for us, we want to diversify our revenue streams. So we have a number of goals on how to get there. And we're going to do a certain number of things to diversify that revenue. So diversify revenue is very vague, but our goals have a list of things of how we're going to get there. Our business objective is how your business plans to get to your goals. What are you going to do? It's going to look at the strength of your business. Are you a very talented photographer, but maybe you're not good at marketing? And I'm not picking on anyone in the chat because I think you're great at marketing also. Are you really great at making sales at farmers market, but you can't convert online? What is an opportunity? What is missing in the market? I think about Spokane as an example, and every city that we work in, I talk to people and everyone wants to open a coffee shop. And I love coffee. I have a coffee in this room. We don't need another coffee shop that's doing the same thing in this town. If you're not at a location that's underserved, which I don't think there are any in most places in Washington, but what are you doing differently? And everyone can brew an amazing thing, and YouTube talking about tutorials, and even TikTok. I'm on TikTok. I don't really post, but I follow things. I follow a lot of recipes. I'm getting definitely different content than Alexis. But we can all make a great cup of coffee, but what is different? So I think about Lunarium in Spokane. That's a coffee shop that's open after hours. So it works for them because they filled a need. They found that opportunity that was missing. Versus going to farmers markets these days, it feels like everyone and their brother is selling freeze-dried candy. And I don't know how many versions of a freeze-dried Skittle one person needs, but perhaps there's something else you could be doing. So identifying what that opportunity is. Your goals are going to change, your objectives are not. The objectives are who you are and what you want to achieve. You want to make beautiful photos. You want to have an authentic Colombian restaurant. Whatever that is, whatever that space is, you want a coffee shop that feels like home. That's who you're always going to be. What you're going to do to get there and to support that goal, those are going to change. The metric, again, is quantifiable. It has to be a number, measurable things. The weight example, it's a number. Where's that scale going to go? And it's a measure used to track and assess the performance of a specific business function or process. I don't like that definition. It's just a number to get you somewhere. If you want to increase your sales by 10%, and last month's sales were $1,000, you want to get to $1,100 the next month. So it's a measurable goal. You want to increase your social media followers by 50. What are you going to do to get there? It needs to be quantifiable so you know you got there. Versus a qualifiable or qualitative goal, which is a feeling. Are your customers happier? How do you measure that? It might be because they're spending more money. It might be because they're using a positive Google review or they're referring people to you. But a metric is always something that's going to have a number tied to it. And that number is going to be related to what your goal is and how that is serving your business. Just saying I want to increase social media followers, which is how so much business is driven these days, is really vague. What does that mean? Are you measuring it? How you're measuring it? KPI is an acronym for a kind of business metric. It's key performance indicator. Very corporate, very Salesforce. It feels like the acronyms from movies. Every business is going to have its own set of KPIs. KPIs are literally just a metric. And your key performance indicators, how well am I doing, are going to vary by the kind of business you have and the phase you are in your business. Example is, I want to gain 10 new customers this month. Again, a KPI must be quantifiable. A KPI and a metric are just another way of saying the same thing. And the other thing about buying business goal books is you're going to have some version of metric or KPI or goal or fill in the blank. They are words that all mean the same thing. We are not in an artisanal space teaching you how to run a business. Find a word that works for you and use it. Use KPI if you like, use metric, use measure. They all mean the same thing. If they don't mean anything to you, they're not going to help. If you don't remember what KPI stands for, don't waste your time. So again, quantifiable has to be measured. If you want to increase your sales by 10%, you need to know what your sales were. Back on that finances, you need to know how much they were and why. A lot of businesses, most businesses, don't have the same income month to month. Very few of them do. Probably McDonald's. Most McDonald's probably have pretty regular income. Think about the McDonald's at the exit in Ritzville when you're heading from Spokane to Moses Lake and Ephrata. People stop there, people go. They're trying to get from one side of the state to the other or one side of the country to another. Their sales are probably really consistent. Probably a little more in the summer than the winter because Washington is treacherous, but otherwise it's going to be all over the place. So knowing what that is. Qualifiable goals are things that can't be measured by numbers. It's by narratives and storytelling. This is where your brand identity, your website, your social media content matters, your Google reviews. And maybe your metric is to get 5 more 5-star Google reviews. It's quantifiable to drive business. But what your customers are saying about your business is qualifiable. It's why they care about you, why they hire you, what that looks like. So again, positive reviews or feedback. Someone sending their friend in saying, how did I find you? I am definitely that person. I think about a store in Spokane called Veda Lux, which is a little vintage and gift shop. And Summer just opened another store called the Reliquarium. And what Summer is very good at is knowing not only her story, but her customer's story. And you may not have been in one of Summer's stores in months or even years, and you show up and she knows what you've purchased and she knows what you like and she sizes you up, and unfortunately she shows you things that you would like to buy. So don't go in there without your wallet. But knowing what that is, that's qualifiable, that's storytelling, that's a narrative. Who you are and what you're doing. It's hard to set a goal on that. What is a good review? Sure, 5 stars is a good one, but if it's just 5 stars and no telling me why we give 5 stars, I don't know if that helps. A business strategy is how you plan to achieve your goal. So if your goal is to increase customers by 10%, maybe you're going to do a sales promotion in the second month of the quarter to bring in more businesses, get in some new faces. Maybe you're doing a referral. Maybe it's a buy one, get one, a BOGO. Your strategy can focus on customers. It can focus on your employees. Happier employees, less overworked employees, do better work. It can focus on your suppliers. Are we going to diversify our supply chain? What is it? Business strategies are not always just increasing revenue. Maybe it's a better relationship with a supplier for goods or services. So maybe you get a discount or a deal, or you find someone who has a better product. You're making candles and you find a better wax that your customers like better. Your business plan can be informal, but I'm talking about formal today. Written document, again, written meaning committed to paper, the internet, some format, your favorite journal, describing what your business does, who owns your business, and not just your names, but who they are and why they're the ones best suited to own that business, what you hope to achieve in your business, and how you plan on getting there. Your business plan changes based on who you're giving your plan to and the phase of your business. The most common reason for a business plan is a business loan. They are 100% required for every type of commercial business lending, and it needs to be structured. Please do not let AI do it if you're not going to read it over. ChatGPT loves a rocket ship emoji, and Numerica Credit Union does not. Make sure you're editing that, but you're telling your story. The other times you need a business plan are to test your financials because you're putting financial data in there. It's to bring on a business partner. They want to know who you are. It's to go on Shark Tank. We get a lot of requests for angel investors if we know anyone in Eastern Washington, and there are a couple of orgs who do that work, but they fund tech. So unfortunately, if you're opening that coffee shop that we probably don't need, and we'll have a different conversation about that, don't count on an angel investor. If you're developing some cool tech, I got to be a judge at a recent panel for Next Cycle for their pitches, and there were people working in sustainable spaces to create new technology, and I met these gentlemen who were trying to create technology around the cast off of marijuana growth, so both the hemp and something related to the seeds where they could make literal fuels. I got lost on the technology side of it, which is why I do this, but that is someone who might get funded by an angel investor. If you are making a t-shirt, you are opening a coffee shop, Mark Cuban is not calling you. But again, your business plan is going to change. It can change how it is, but it should be telling your story. It's both quantifiable information, data, both actual or projected, and quantifiable, who you are. Because lenders, especially small lenders, who are the kind that loan to small businesses, and if you've come to any financial training for me or with SIMBA, you know that I talk about working with a credit union, because credit unions are nonprofits. They're not giving their money to shareholders. They care about funding businesses in their communities. They're more flexible. They want to know who you are and your vision and why you're there. Yes.
Should businesses have like different business plans depending on their target audience? So like if it's for a bank or anything else, because I know just it's different professional, like formal writing for banks versus if you want it to be more personal and show your brand. Should they have multiple business plans? Or like 2 or 3?
Yes, that's a great question. So yes, but. So I know we've talked about, because SIMBA does business planning, and if you want to talk about business planning, we can support you through formal plans that will get you funded or tell you where the gaps are to get you funded. But, and if you're a SIMBA member, like some folks on there, some of that is fully free. But one thing that is important, if you're a private funder versus a bank, banks are very rigid. Banks have a lot of requirements versus bringing on a business partner by chance. The structure and the language might be a little different, especially if you're in an industry that banks aren't allowed to engage in. Marijuana industries, for example, certain kinds of entertainment that banks versus private funders are going to fund. And every bank has a set of restrictions on what they can and can't fund, where they can and cannot fund it, and what they will fund or not. So having that story, it should be the same business plan, but you've changed your language so it's a little more personable, especially if you're bringing on a business partner. They want to know everything. The bank wants to know the high level information and who they are and what they fund. And talking about what banks will fund, I know of a few credit unions in Eastern Washington, for example, who just don't have the guidelines to fund restaurants unless your restaurant is a chain, because they know a McDonald's will make money because McDonald's doesn't need anything. So knowing what that looks like, perhaps if you are in the restaurant field and you're opening a restaurant, especially a first restaurant, knowing that you may have to get private funding, you want to tell a little bit of a different story there. So that's correct. And sometimes you just want to do a business plan for yourself. A lot of business plans allow you to project out numbers, like what is it going to cost me to get there? So excellent question. So back on goals, again, there's a number of ways to do it. You don't have to use any of them. You can read every book you can, but since we're at a library today and SIMBA loves a library, check them out. The Libby app is my best friend. So, and it's also where I read magazines as well. I do miss paper copies of magazines, but they're wildly expensive. I think I definitely bought last year's September Vogue for $18, and that felt excessive, but check them out if you want to read them. They're going to tell you the same thing, but one easy and really common one that Harvard Business School likes to talk about, they've been in the news recently, they know what they're doing with business, is SMART. And again, use whatever acronym you want. I will teach you about another one at the Clarkston training. But SMART is an acronym because we love an acronym at SIMBA. And in every business space and every organization has their own set of acronyms. It's something that's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound. And I'm going to give you examples of these. Specific are things that are clearly defined and avoid vague language. They answer the questions what, who, when, and where. Maybe not all of them, but the things that apply to your business. So increasing customer spend by 10% compared to last year is a specific goal. Increasing customer spending is a vague goal. The more specific you are, the easier you can track it, the easier you know whether you're achieving your goal and if you need to adjust your goal. No one knows your business goals but you and your other business owners, maybe your staff. It's okay to say, maybe I'm just going to hit 5% this year because everyone is on a tight and tighter budget all the time. And maybe you exceed that goal. Maybe it's 12%. It needs to be measurable. It has to have a criteria or a metric or a KPI for measuring and tracking progress towards your goals. This has to be a numeric goal, a percentage, a number, something you can measure. I'm not going to make you do math, but knowing your financials will help you get a measurable goal if it's an increasing a customer spend. Another measurable goal might be earning enough money to hire an employee, which means you need to know, and I'll go into depth at the Clarkston training on this, what it costs for that employee to be there. Their hourly wage, their payroll taxes, their workers' compensation, sick leave, fill in the blank. What is that actual number and how do I get there? So again, a measurable goal. I want to lease a space instead of working from home. What is that lease going to cost me? Am I going to make enough money? So something you can get there. Achievable goals are realistic within reach. Realistic. An example is growing annual sales to $1 million when, typo, your prior year's annual sales were $50K. That feels wildly unreasonable, especially for a small business in Eastern Washington. How are you going to get there? How much is it going to cost you to get there? We helped someone at SIMBA with a business plan that was beautiful for a restaurant. And they had all this data and put together, and it told the story of the owners, and they all had restaurant experience, and they knew what they were doing. And they have projected sales out of nowhere of $1 million for a sports bar in Spokane. I don't know if you've been to Spokane recently and gone to a sports bar, and I can only name a handful of them off the top of my head, they're not bringing $1 million. They will sell a ton of beers when the Zags are in March Madness, but we're not the market for $1 million sales. I do know that, back to Spokane, that Wendy's that is on the corner of Division and Ruby where they split, that's $1 million Wendy's because everyone has to drive by it. But that's their gross sales, not their net sales. So make it a reasonable goal. If you have 5 Instagram followers for your business, your goal is probably not going to be 1,000 in a month unless you're paying for those followers, which is an option, not a great one. Your goal needs to be relevant. It needs to align with your overall values and long-term objectives. SIMBA supports independent and local businesses in Eastern Washington. If we had a goal to partner with Amazon, that would go against our values and our long-term objectives. So make a goal that works for you, that feels good for you. And a goal that is time-bound. You should have a clearly defined time frame. I want to increase customer spending by 10%. When? 10% in 2 years, 10% in a month, 10% compared to last month. Otherwise, you keep chasing something. It's that I want to lose weight, and then all of a sudden it's the new year again, and you're on the same goal, and maybe that number has grown a little bit because you didn't have a timeline of what that looked like. And so knowing what that is really important. How do you create them? Specific, answer questions. What do you want to accomplish? Who is going to do it? Is it you? Do you know how to do that thing? Are you going to have to do some learning to do that? Like finances, a lot of small businesses struggle with finances. Are you going to have to pay your accountant or bookkeeper more to do that? What steps need to be taken to achieve it, and how long actually is it going to take? Something that Amber Jasmine, the accountant, talked about in one of the trainings. If you're thinking about hiring an employee, do you know how long it takes you to do the work you do as a sole business owner? How are you tracking that? Spend a day tracking your time, because you don't know how much you're going to have to pay someone for hours of work if you don't know how long it takes you to do the thing you're doing. Measurable, again, specific number, how many, and by when, and just track it. I was at a training with Wheelhouse, which is a nonprofit statewide that supports people in art spaces, and they're incredible. And TS, who a lot of folks know, Devontae, who works at Spokane Arts, said he F's with a Google Sheet. And a Google Sheet will get you where you need to be. A notebook gets you there. Having some way to track it and get there. Achievable. You need to account for your existing resources, the goods, the staff you have, the space you have, the skills you need or your staff needs to achieve it. Your other existing work and projects. Don't get rid of the thing that's working to do this new thing. And achievable also needs to take into account, is it worthwhile to you? At that same panel, the Wheelhouse panel, Megan Kennedy, who runs Rogue House Media in Spokane, or Rogue Heart Media, excuse me, not Rogue House, talked about how they wanted to grow their business, but she also wanted to stay connected with her family. And if she grew her business too fast, she would miss out on her children. She'd miss out on her vacations. It would be tough on her personal relationships. Is it worth it to you to give all this time and effort for a goal to make a little more money and have more customers? Your personal life fades. Relevant, tied to your business. TikTok is a good one. TikTok is great for online sales. But if you don't have an online sales platform, don't waste your time on TikTok if you only have a brick and mortar that doesn't ship or sell anywhere else. It's not going to help. If you're trying to drive people into your brick and mortar shop, TikTok might get you a little bit. The algorithm does get frighteningly close to home sometimes. I definitely saw a Spokane one the other day, and there's no part of my social media that ties me to where I am. So think about, is it worthwhile for you to engage in TikTok? I am constantly afraid that Alexis will suggest that SIMBA gets on TikTok, and then I have to do some awkward trending thing where we have the Gen X staff person talk about Riz and words I don't understand.
Great idea.
It's a great idea. It's coming soon. And again, time bound. Have a goal with a deadline. You can move your deadline. It's your deadline. This isn't school. But give yourself time to achieve it and evaluate it regularly. If it's a year-long timeline, check in monthly, check in quarterly. What does that look like? Because maybe it's not working at all. Or maybe you've already achieved it and you're wasting your time putting the resources there. Have a time that works. A lot. Review resources in Q&A. So SIMBA loves a one-on-one consultation. They can be in person, they can be online. You're not limited to just one. We have a short intake form on our website. You can reach out by phone. You can reach out on social media. We do answer our social media. We are engaged in our social media. We don't answer on the weekends because we don't work on the weekends. I probably am answering you on the weekends if you email me, but I will send it for Monday morning. So just know if you get an 8 a.m. Monday morning email from me, I definitely answered it on Saturday. But there's a short intake form because we have to track for our funders because we are primarily funded by government contracts and grants, and they care about where their money goes. So short intake form, we only report that information in the aggregate in a private way, so we're not disclosing what you told us. Come to a group training like this one, or head to our events page to find out when other ones exist. We have them in person, we have them online. Go to our YouTube channel. If you missed a training video or you wanted to watch something again, on demand whenever you like, follow us on there to let you know when we're posting. Follow SIMBA's Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. The LinkedIn has been very popular lately, and I'm not sure what that is. I know how important LinkedIn is, especially as someone in a business-to-business space. I don't love the platform, but business tips are on there, event information's on there. Subscribe to our monthly newsletter. You don't have to read it. I will tell you there are live links at the top, so you can skip the executive director's letter, which breaks my heart, but I won't know if you clicked on it, and go right to the business tips or the business information or the events page and find the part that you want. Questions? None. Thank you again to our friends at the North Central Washington Library for hosting us today, and we can't wait to come back to Grant County and expand more in this space. And thanks, as always, to our friends at Vexing Media for recording and making this work. And this will be online shortly. Thanks so much.